you're another certified muscle system specialist.
Yes.
And I, I like to start off, what does that mean to you? How do you explain that to anyone else out there that, no one's ever heard of this? So what is it?
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's pretty much gone from me starting to talk and talk for about 20 minutes, which can scare people away, down to like, or they're fascinated, right? Down to like a 5-second thing. I think muscle system specialists are really good at solving complex musculoskeletal issues. So if you have a pain issue, or movement issue, we're really good at solving that problem, and optimizing your function over time. So I think in this world, especially if you have a lot of pain, you want to feel better. And there's a lot of modalities that will help you feel better. In my opinion, there are not a lot that will actually help you function better over time. So our goal, I think, or my goal as a muscle system specialist, is to look at your system as an entire system, right? And the expression of your system is through motor output. And how successful you are in moving depends on your variability, right? So how many options you have available at one time. And age affects that. Stresses in your life, injuries affect that a ton, and they tend to take your variability away. And then your system gets stressed because it has to do all this stuff with fewer things. And as muscle systems specialist, I aim to provide you and give you back your variability through all these different motor control scenarios. And you tend to function better over time. And we use exercise. And I believe in the power of exercise to solve really complex problems. That being said, the scientific application of exercise, the decision making of what to do, when to do, how to do it, is the secret sauce. Because everybody's out there doing stuff with the body, right? So how we make decisions, not what decisions to make, but how we make decisions, is key in trying to help people move this amazing body through space well.
Well said. Wow.
Thank you.
That was great. Oh my gosh. There's so much I have to, where's my book? No, there's a lot to unpack there. I hope that's okay. I took down a bunch of notes,
Sure, of
and
course. Yeah.
because the main purpose of this is to kind of pick apart, not to be over analyzing, but to have other people understand, like,
Yeah.
that don't know. You said muscle system, we treat things as a system. You said the word variability. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of functioning longer over time. Oh, that's brilliant. It's such a, well, we'll probably even start there if that's okay, because I think one of the
Sure.
main things that everybody else seems to grasp on is the short term, I don't want to say fix, but just like, oh my gosh, please get rid of this pain, or please just get rid of this.
Definitely.
Right. But,
Yeah.
to get that really, like you said, functioning, longer over time, like, how do you explain that to somebody? And that, go ahead.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with there?
Okay. So the question is, how do I explain how we help you function better over time?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think a good place to start is why a person shows up, right? So if you are a human being, life has beat you up a little bit, potentially, right? And I think what a lot of people don't understand is, our nervous system has grown with our muscular system, dependent on the forces that we experience, like from when we were little, tiny, cute, adorable babes, all the way up to where we are now. We all have arm bones and leg bones and a spine, but how our system has grown into that structure is totally unique, right? So my knee pain may have been created from an ankle injury and my body kind of dealing around that for the last 10 years. Someone else's knee pain is from the other side of the spine. Maybe they had some back stuff and it's created this whole system interplay where the body has to figure out how to deal with that hip, and it changes kind of the hip position on the other side and makes the knee all crazy. So everyone's pain, we all experience pain, but why that happens can be so different. It's really unique. So when a body shows up, it is a beautiful history of how they've lived their life, right? Like their system has grown in that way. So why you have pain is as unique as it gets. Mm-hmm. So that's maybe why if you're someone with pain and you've been to other modalities, where there was just kind of more of a protocol, like, oh, when you have knee pain, you do these 8 exercises, right? So as a muscle system specialist, we're going to look at the whole system, at this entire unique system and your history of injuries and how your body has kind of formed around them and dealt around them. And we're going to really look at the system as a whole, which takes more time. So a quick fix isn't really going to be helpful, right? Because if we want to make good decisions, we have to make really good first decisions. So we're going to do a lot of investigating, right? Like everything's off that first decision, right? If you make a somewhat okay decision, it's a waste of time. I don't want to waste time, So I'm going to do up front a ton of investigating, so I can make that amazing first decision. Is it always amazing? Probably not, but I'm going to try my best, right? And also, the system is never static, right? So it's the functioning over time thing is relevant because we always have to brush our teeth. We always have to eat. Our body is always changing. So it's important to understand that, you're probably going to have to take care of your muscle system as you get older. You're going to have to think about putting really strategic and appropriate force through it so it can respond and get better. So it's important to potentially find someone who's really good with bodies, like a car mechanic, like your dentist, like you have your muscle person that can work with you consistently when something goes awry and can work with you over time to make sure the bod is functioning optimally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think it's great. It really answered the question about trying to get someone's muscle system to function longer over a period of time versus that short-term little, sensational change that they're looking for. Because, you said something really interesting here that we grow into our structure. And, this past advanced course that Greg did, there was a lecture there, and, I could talk about this. It's concrescent system versus assembled system. And we had to sit down and talk about the fact that like you just said, we're growing into these structures. And when you have a car accident or you have an injury or you have a surgery, your body has to figure out ways instantly it's already solving its own problem to keep going, right? Without, subconsciously. And versus an assembled system where, our computers, our laptops, computers right now on a table and a leg falls off, the whole system crumbles.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's not optimal. Can't do anything.
Yeah. Like our brains spend a lot of time making these really cool short-term strategies. And I think as muscle system specialists, my intention is to give you a really optimal long-term strategy or a long-term solution, right? Like, because our bodies have worked around these injuries fairly well for most people. Like you never really see someone not able to walk, right? Like this brain can put this mass in motion with pretty big interruptions in function, and we can still walk. Like it's pretty amazing. I have a 96-year-old client and she's had 3 major strokes, and to anyone, her performance doesn't look amazing. She's on a walker, but homegirl is walking, she's walking, she's upright, she's not in a wheelchair, which would start to degrade the whole thing. And she is walking. It doesn't look pretty, but she's walking, and she couldn't walk for a couple of years. So that, it's all relative, but it's pretty amazing that the brain can be like, okay, we're upright in gravity, let's figure this out, right? And her whole body is all shifted in all these different ways to keep her balanced, but she can walk. And it's, for her, that is higy performance.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly, that's high performance for someone like her. And hang on. Sorry. Call just tried to come in. Had to boot it out. Well, let's talk about the solution that we prescribe as muscle system specialists. It's exercise. And I'm pretty sure every time you get a new person like myself and we give them an exercise and now they're able to have more range of motion on another joint, from doing a very, very specific type of exercise. And then people are like, that's it? That's all you did?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
So how is it where, I don't know if you have, by the way, don't you have a background? Are you a physical therapist or?
No, neuroscience. I was a neuroscience major.
Okay. I'm sorry. Neuroscience major. Oh, that's huge. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how is it, and with that background, what kind of talks do you have with other, therapists, trainers, exercise physiologists, where, I have a hard time with this. They're like, why do that too? And it's like, yeah, you do. But we that distinguishing part on the decision making, like you said, that's when they're like, that's a bit much.
Yeah, the decision making is the hallmark, right? So your philosophy dictates your methodology, right? So how you've learned and think about the body, which is from your own experience, from school, from mentors, whatever, right? You have this idea of how the body functions. And so you are going to create methods around that philosophy, right? I think in a world where time is money, one of the most important things for decision making is time. And I know a lot of modalities, especially that take insurance, just don't have time, right? So I can only speak to my personal experience with physical therapy, which, I would see a physical therapist for about 20 to 30 minutes. And I don't know if there is enough time to create the type of decision-making tree that's super valuable. And I may be wrong. And I know that some physical therapists do spend a lot of time with patients and don't take insurance. So, it's hard to categorize. But again, I can just speak to my experience, and the more time I have with somebody, the better. The better I can investigate, the more questions I can ask. Again, we're back to that, making that first decision, right? And again, when I was younger, when I was around 19, I tore all the ligaments in my left ankle. And I was a triathlete in my 20s and 30s. And I had hip pain so bad that I could barely walk. And I was only 30. And I went through a couple of years of physical therapy, acupuncture, massage. I did everything. I was in the whole gamut. And short-term relief, nothing long-term helped me. And that whole entire time, everyone was looking at my hip. They were stretching it, they were foam rolling it, they were massaging it. I was diagnosed with piriformis syndrome and SI joint dysfunction, scary names. And I was like, I'm 30 years old. There has to be something better. Is something wrong with me? Something must be wrong with me, and I'm never going to get better, and I'm always going to be in pain. And it was really hard. And I first saw a MAT, a muscle activation techniques person, but then was doing a lot of RTS stuff. And that was the first person who looked at my ankle and my feet. And we did all this feet stuff. And even I, at the time, I was like, hello, my problem is in my hip. And we did all this ankle stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I feel better. Right. I don't feel like parts of me are missing anymore. It was just a weird feeling after we did all this stuff with my ankle. And it took about a year for me to get really good, strong, no pain. And it was all like, this problem had worked through my system for 15 years, wow. Right? Like I torn the ligaments, started running again, and my body had to figure out how to work around this big material change in my ankle, right? But my hip was crazy because probably every time I landed on the ground, my hip had to kind of decelerate me way more than normal because I had nothing at my foot, right? So, and I have to, there's a material change in that ankle, right? It's not the same as the right side. So I always have to do, like, my hip will start bugging me a little bit. I'm like, okay, I got to do my feet stuff. And I do my feet stuff and it's great. So it's just always something I need to work on.
And when you say feet stuff, these are exercises, not stretching or foam rolling.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, exercises. So, and right, a healthy muscle system is one that can create tension at a continuum of lengths, right? So your muscle system has to be able to contract, it has to be able to lengthen, it has to be able to isometrically hold. So I work all of those different types of contraction at that ankle. The big thing for me was dorsiflexion, right? So at the ankle, so pulling your foot up. The eccentric, I had no eccentric strength in that.
I was going to ask you, like,
in dorsiflexion,
which side, which mode of contraction? Because this is something that we need to talk about. Like, you had the concentric or myo or the iso, but you lose strength, or you didn't have any strength on an eccentric. Like, how's that possible?
Yeah, I know. I couldn't, like, the difference from side to side was crazy. Like, I couldn't, and it was really interesting. Like we were saying, like when that dorsiflexion gets strong, like my trunk rotation to the left gets like I feel so much better going to, like, my whole body is like, yes, when I work my dorsiflexion. But it speaks to the problem solving for, like, that we do, right? It speaks to, it's not just, can I move the weight A to B? Yeah. Right? There's a qualitative component to the health of our muscles, and we need to investigate. Right? If you have a really tough pain problem and you've been to a lot of people, it's a good idea to find someone that's an MSS, because we're going to investigate. Like, I'm not going to let this bone go until I figure it out. Right? Like, because there's so many interruptions, right? Like, our systems are amazing, but there are imperfections in our systems. And that leaves us susceptible to issues. And I think everyone, maybe not everyone, but most people are going to find themselves needing maintenance, support, and help with a problem. And sometimes, like, our bodies don't like to show what's wrong, right? So it's hard to find sometimes. It really is. Like, that dorsiflexion eccentric thing, like, I was pretty good at everything else. So a typical assessment, like, oh, dorsiflexion is strong, move on. What if we try to lengthen it with control? Like, nothing. Wow. And doing that makes my whole body feel so much better. It's pretty amazing. Body. My whole body. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. When you're talking about investigating to find out that eccentrically you couldn't dorsiflex, you had no strength to make your whole body feel better, how long did it take to investigate and find that out? Like, how much thinking was involved? How much data collecting? How much of knowing of your history and doing all these other screens that we have? That it, like, finally go, you know what, let's try this out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I first started working on my feet, it was when I was going to the MAT stuff a ton, like foot function after foot function, my body felt better. But it was really, I think it was in one of the MSS courses in Ohio. You take a person and you do, like, a profile on them, right? And we did.
Wait, what's a profile?
Oh, so so it is a picture of your system. So a profile is we take in a lot of data about you, right? Um, and we look at your history, we do range of motion, we look at your posture, and gosh, we look at so many things, right?
We got to
Like
draw it out. We got to draw a
we've got to
picture
draw
out
it out
the
so we
next
can
day,
see it.
you
We
know.
take it home, we study it,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're making decisions in session, we're making decisions at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making, I'm always thinking about it. But yeah, we do this profile, we take in a ton of data. And we did it with each other. So that took a few days. But when we put mine up and looked at it, and we had Greg kind of look around, and I mean, he's kind of the best in the business at honing in.
Sure.
And that's when we figured out, like, oh, you can't control that dorsiflexion eccentrically at all, right? And I thought I had gotten pretty good at foot stuff, right? But it was that but it was interesting because I was like, I can run, but I don't do endurance anymore. But every once in a while, like my foot will kind of rebel. But since I've been doing that eccentric stuff, it hasn't. So it was that final piece for me. So overall, it took like 10 years, but it took, like a good hour session to take all that data. But I was also like, it's my foot. Like we've found a lot of stuff in this foot, right? But then we kind of went through the whole system, like, okay, I've been dealing with this ankle for so long. And then we started looking at hip flexion. So we kind of looked at it systemically through my body and figured out some more stuff that I wasn't awesome at. So I've been doing some hip flexion stuff and just some like associative stuff. But, it can take a while. It can take a while to figure out what's going on. And right. So with clients, one of the first things I ask in session is like, are you okay if you don't feel amazing, if you don't feel instantly better for a month, for a couple months? Are you okay with that? Right? Like, because people, I think, show up expecting to be like, bum, 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 ta-da.
Yeah.
And potentially because they've been doing things that make them feel better, right? Like just smash the crap out of the tissue and it'll release. But as soon as you're up in gravity again, your brain's like, okay, we got to figure this out, tighten. And it's the same problem. So that's a big question I ask, right? Like, are you okay with, like, if you don't feel anything after today, are you okay with that? Because it might happen,
Or even, is it okay to take that time to investigate, build a crime scene and go home and draw it out with your, color coded pen. All right, red.
Yeah.
Red sagittal, green's transverse.
Yeah.
Blue's frontal. Oh, I see a lot of frontal plane stuff. A lot of frontal plane stuff. Oh, it's on the right side frontal plane stuff.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. If you are a person in pain and you're kind of looking for a solution, I think one of the best things to ask a potential practitioner is, how do you make decisions? Right? Like, I think it's important to empower people because there is so much crazy information out there, right? Like, there's so much. And if you have knee pain or back pain, you're getting 10 people a day being like, you should drink spinach juice and then like twirl 10 times. And it's crazy. It's like, it's
sorry, you're
but
great.
Maybe you should drink spinach juice anyway, but it's crazy.
Is that what you're drinking right now?
No, this is coffee.
All right.
Yeah, it's still 9, Mike, it's still 9:30.
All right, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, you can choose from so many things, right? Like, where do you even start? Yeah. And I think it's a good idea up front to ask some questions, right? Like, how do you make decisions? How do you see pain, and what's pain to you in the system? And right. So you can ask some questions to kind of get you started, because again, there's so many different ways of working into the body. And, who knows, like, who knows, right? Like you could have a client who's has back pain and it's hard to figure out, and they go to an acupuncturist and they come
Mhm.
back and they're like, my pain's gone and I'm great. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, great.
good.
Like amazing. So you never know, right? It's hard to say like my method is the best.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right?
That's
Like,
true. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's
but I think, go ahead.
and people will. I like to ask right off the bat, are you okay starting from scratch?
Mm,
You know, like
yeah.
completely from scratch. Like I know you've been asked a ton of questions from a ton of different people, and you've been saying the same things probably because they're getting
Yeah.
your history too. But
Yeah.
like you said, when it comes to decisions, the how, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
how we make decisions, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same how everyone else has made decisions. So
Agreed.
we got to start from scratch. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to build this profile up. This is phase one, right?
Yeah.
Because we got
Yeah.
another phase to go through if we even make it
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Or you might not need it.
Yeah.
You might not need it, but we got to start off getting all this information. Oh, yeah, look at that dorsiflexion.
Mm.
Dorsiflexion.
All right.
You know?
Interesting.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, you said you had it for 15 years, and 1 year later, you don't have that problem anymore. I guess that 1 year
Mm-hmm.
is worth it, right?
100%. Because I
Mm-hmm.
spent about 3 in doing other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
PT and massage and acupuncture and, you know, therapy. I'm like, maybe it's an emotional issue. like,
Hey, that's a
like
component of it too.
for sure. And I
Yeah.
definitely felt better after I started doing some like energy work. But yeah, but you get desperate, you
Yeah,
get desperate.
you do.
And there's so much out there. It's almost like I hate to be judgmental, but I'm going to be.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's,
No
I
judgment
think
here.
there's
Nah.
like kind of like a dumbing down in, in the world of fitness when it's like you go on social media and it's like back pain, you need this exercise. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's one exercise that helps back pain,
Yeah.
like it's crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
it's because, and what's interesting is you don't see a heart surgeon going on social media and being like, what's the one heart surgery you need? Because that would be insane. And it's insane because it's so invasive to make a mistake,
Yeah.
right?
Wow. Well said. That's true.
However,
Yeah.
exercise is invasive too. It
Yeah.
just takes longer to show the mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you're having heart surgery, you're cutting through some stuff, big consequences.
Mm-hmm.
There are not the same, but there are consequences to bad decisions in exercise. They just take longer to show up,
Yeah.
right?
It's true.
So
Wow.
it's like, can we stop going on social media? I know that
Mhm.
it's good for likes and stuff, but can we stop like telling everybody that there's 4 exercises that they're not doing that are the most important ones? It's insane,
Yeah, I agree.
and it's why I don't really go on social media and talk about muscle stuff, because I'm
Mhm.
like, it's so general. Like, how am I going to go on here and be like, this is what you all need to do?
Oh,
Like it's crazy.
oh, you make me feel guilty now.
Why?
No, I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time because people, I got people, hey, you got to get on social media and put some
Yeah.
stuff out there. And I'm like, what am I going to say?
I
Hey, this is
know.
the exercise that's going to help with your back pain. But you know what
Right.
I've been doing? Honestly, I'll show exercises I do and explain, yeah, this helps me with my back pain.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
I I would love for it to help you with your back pain too, but you may
Yeah.
not have the same problems, which
Yeah.
hopefully I'm getting that message across. I've had some friends been telling
Yeah.
me, okay, it's good. I'm like, all right, good. Because I can't do that. These are 3 exercises for your hip
Right.
to do
Yeah.
before. I agree. You can't we cannot generalize at
Yeah.
all exercise. It drives me nuts. I'm with you. But now I'm just
Yeah.
posting and I forget it and walk away.
Yes. But I think what you're doing is great. I've seen your stuff and, you're talking about how you're making decisions. You're not telling people what decision to make.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
thank you.
think that there's a way to do it, that, I mean, people want the solution. They want it quick, they want it easy.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard to actually be like, you know what, that may be what you want, but what you actually need is a partnership or a relationship with a really good muscle person that can make really good decisions for your unique body. It's like, it's not as sexy to be like, I can't help you until I really like start to perturb your system and figure some things out. Right? Like, it's way sexier to be like, I can solve all your problems in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. It's yeah, that's so true. It's not sexy at all uh, what I've learned is that
Yeah.
a lot of people won't like this, and I'm okay with it. It used to really bother me because I can help anyone and everyone with muscles, right? That's
Right.
true. We know that, but then also, are they going to like it? Because
Right.
I've learned that, you know what, I don't think this person's going to really like this, because you're going to be doing some work, and then you realize, oh man, this takes a lot of effort, and effort is not easy. And I asked someone the other day who was expecting a different modality. I'm not going to say what. And I said, I don't do that anymore. Mine's more very exercise-based approach, but I've got to get all this stuff. And then there's some like, I know my friend wouldn't like it. Okay, cool. Then, I don't think if they're not going to like it, then don't worry about telling them about me. So that's one of the things where, like, everything else you said, there's 30 million things out there you can do. You just lay on a table and someone does all the work for you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what happens with the nervous system when someone does that, because it's a totally different information exchange on your muscle system than actual exercise. Because like you said, we're impacted by gravity, right? A force that's always imposed on us. And then whatever we're doing, picking stuff up, turning the steering wheel while we're driving, pushing down the gas pedal, picking up, right, those daily things. And then noticing we're using the same. We're just applying force in areas that you haven't felt, your brain hasn't known about. And does it like it? And we test it out and say, oh, you're getting stronger. How you feel?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's
and it often doesn't look like traditional exercise, right? So that can be confusing for some people.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're not just coming in and like paying per exercise, right? Which a lot of people do, right? It's like $5 for a bicep curl, $20 for a deadlift.
What, people do that?
It's like, okay, here are these 10 exercises. I'm just going to kind of watch you do them, which can have a benefit, right? I love to deadlift, but to solve a complex pain issue, just from my experience, there's an in-depth understanding of how physics affects the body that is needed, right? You're just going to like dole out exercises and have fun, have at it, But if it's, if you're really dealing with some complex issues, which as a trainer is pretty valuable to be able to handle those, right?
Yes.
But you're going to need to know about, hey, there's this thing called the strength profile in your body, right? Your ability changes as the range of motion changes. And then there's a resistance profile to the force you're applying to the body, and resistance changes as the range of motion changes. And you need to match those. And how are you going to match those? And we tend to create exercises that you may never have seen for each person, right? Like we're creating this force scenario dependent on what we've seen in their history to get this motor output better. And whereas a bicep curl would have really created pain for them, right? We create this different scenario. The forearm changes, maybe the resistance profile changes. We create a bigger cam for it. Who knows? But like there's infinite ways to create a force scenario for people instead of just these prepackaged things that we all learned, right? And can apply. But in the gym, I'm usually doing stuff that just doesn't look like traditional exercises, right? So we really have to start thinking way out of the box in terms of applying force. And if you're in pain, and exercise, because exercise can degrade your health as much as it can improve it, right? Like it can exacerbate a pathology. So you may be like, well, exercise hurt me. And no, exercise didn't hurt you. Inappropriate for you exercise hurt you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of people can tend to shy away from exercise because it's hurt them or it doesn't seem to help. And it's like, it's not the exercise, it's the decision making behind choosing exercises.
Yeah. Or, I see this a lot. You get people that exercise a lot and they want to keep, let's say a runner or power lifter. I got bodybuilders down here in Tampa that come to me and they want to keep doing the hard lifting. And it's like, man, that wrist is going to give out real soon.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
And well, I got to keep going. All right. Well, my decision was to stop because now if I'm going to be responsible for something later on in that material change, like you made, like you said before, on a joint, it's gonna be a problem because sometimes that dose, it's so weird. I'm trying to figure out a way to explain dosage, exercise dosing, because I have a lot of friends that I don't know what that means. I don't understand what that is. And I know we understand that, but it's, if you have anything to share about that, please. I'm still having a hard time trying to figure out how to explain exercise dosing unless they experience it. Then they're like, oh, I get it. Experiencing it is one thing, but the high dosage or overdosing, which we can totally prove that you're being overdosed with exercise.
Yeah.
You could fatigue not just a joint, but the entire system, and it just gets compromised. Hey, let's do this test. Oh, can't do this. How about this?
Yeah.
Let's check all the limbs. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think, dosing is a very interesting topic. And I think one of the big things with dosing is, when you're doing an exercise like a hang power clean or something, right? That exercise can be lighting you up and optimizing your system, or it could be down regulating your system. Like an exercise isn't good or bad on its own, right? It depends on who shows up to the exercise, right?
Yeah.
But can you get the bar from a hang to a power clean? Sure. You're managing that exercise. There's a difference between managing an exercise and actually doing an appropriate exercise that is optimizing your function. Those two are very different, sometimes when I see, especially young athletes working out, like young athletes are pretty indestructible. So I see a lot of people just redlining them day after day because they can manage it.
Yeah.
Is it optimal for them? I don't know. Probably not. But they're just redline. And again, I'm making a generalization, but I'm across from a gym that trains young athletes. And oftentimes it's just like, they don't really care what happens in between getting the bar from the ground to the sky. They just want that bar to go ground to sky. And sometimes I'm like, my eyes, like I can't watch this 15-year-old like do this. He's getting the bar from the ground to the sky. But the whole excursion is like so sloppy and chaotic, right? And it's like, okay, he's managing it, but is that optimizing his function? I don't know. It doesn't look like it is, but he's young. So, his body can generally handle it. But again, it doesn't make it amazing for him. And how do we know? Right? Like, how do we know? I have no idea if that is good for him or not. The only way I could create a little mini experiment around that is like, okay, go do 10 hang power cleans or clean jerks. And let's get you on the table and let's do some testing.
Yeah.
Right. Like as muscle system specialists, we are muscle testing all the time because it's our barometer into the body, because everything else is just a guess.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's so true. I hate guessing.
go do 20 squats. Okay, thanks, bye. I hope that your system could handle that, right?
Hmm.
Like, is there a way that we can maybe get a little bit more of an educated guess as to whether those squats are good? Yeah, go squat and let's do a system action reaction screen, which is something we do as MSS specialists, where we are muscle testing different parts of your body, right? Taking like little samples around your body.
Hmm.
Is it perfect? No. Is it completely objective? No, but it's better,
Yeah.
right? It's better. It's okay. We're going to put your system in a scenario, right? You're going to squat. You're going to do all this crazy stuff, and then we're going to take you over here, and we're going to test you and see if your body was like, yes, like that was great, or if your body was like, oh, like I don't know.
Hmm.
And then we'll let you recover for a little bit. Maybe you need a little bit more recovery, and then we'll test you again. So there's ways to figure out what exercises are appropriate for you at the time. And I use muscle testing as that barometer. Um,
Or
yeah.
the QMAMC that Greg
Yeah.
likes to call. And then
Yeah.
it's funny what you said. Like, let's say you go back to that 10 clean and jerks or squats, even though they
Mm-hmm.
did it, they performed it, they finished it.
Yeah.
And right. Okay, I did it. So I'm fine. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's kind of separate that, create that scenario where let's kind of see what happened with that rotation. I know you're in one plane, but
Right.
all of a sudden, your system doesn't like that. Like, you
Yeah.
can't even perform a light little isometric hold against my hand that I'm
Yeah.
pushing you on, even though you
Yeah.
just threw up like 200 pounds.
Right.
Right. It's wild
Yeah.
that reaction afterwards is like, I'm done. I'm smoked. And
Yeah.
you need to find out what that time frame of recovery is. Oh, wait, it came back. What happened here?
Right.
So like you said, that's our proof. Is it perfect? No. Is it the best we can do? Yes. And we can
Yeah.
keep changing those scenarios to see, like, all right, what about this position? What about that position? What about, this plane, that plane,
Mm-hmm.
this,
Yeah.
it's this joint here. Right. You
Yeah.
can keep changing it up, whether it's not just on a table, you can do it on, the 45-degree total gym, or I use the Bravo lumbar pad, or
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
standing. You know what?
Yeah.
Stand right there. Let's see if you can hold it. See how strong
Yeah.
you are in the side just from
Yeah.
standing. And
Yeah. 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 It's really cool to be able to do that and to have learned to do that.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, and talking about the variability thing, right? When you're young, you have, you have so much variability, right?
So
When
talk about that.
you're
What
a
How would
young
you
athlete.
describe what variability is?
Okay. So the way I think about it is your brain's main priority is to move mass through space, right? That's
Mhm.
what most of your brain is doing. Um, and it does it through motor output, right? Motor control. And every movement you make is really unique. I think Greg Mack was talking about it, like, a Christmas tree during Christmas that's lit and it flashes, and every flash there's a different pattern of lights. Do you
Mhm.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Sometimes with
That's
music, you know.
sometimes with music.
Mhm.
Yep. But that's what he's saying. Like, when I lift my arm up, and let's say I lift my arm up 10 times, every time is a completely different, unique pattern of firing, right? So I have this variability in my body, right? It's always unique and it's always variable, right? So I can move my arm in all these different ways, right? I can internally rotate it, I can externally rotate it, I can flex it and internally rotate it, right? This joint has a lot of availability. It has a lot of variability, right? I can move it in all these different ways, with different firing patterns too. Yeah,
I had to do that. Sorry.
like every jazz hand is a different firing pattern.
All right.
So,
Wait, can I ask you a tough question here?
yes, please.
When it comes to what you just said, every time you did this, it's a
Yeah,
completely different, like, unique pattern or,
yeah,
configuration, what we like to
yes,
call, right?
yeah.
A lot of people would disagree with that, because
Oh,
it's like,
okay,
no, 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 no. And I'm, this is the part where I want to just churn a bit, because
okay.
and you have this background, right?
Yeah,
Neuroscience
yeah.
background. So how can you explain where most of the people out there are going, well, no, we gotta change these patterns, right? You have this pattern, specific
Yeah.
like pattern versus
Hmm.
variability. So how can you go around when someone says, no, it's a pattern, it's the same thing every single time, and we're like, no, it's not. It's not the
Yeah.
same every
Yeah.
single time. So how do we, oh, pull that
Yeah,
apart?
right. So when we think about it's such a good question. And, because I think it's words like pattern versus variability. Like I feel like pattern is kind of a buzzword in the fitness industry, right? You got to work these patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think pattern is more global. Like we do have patterns, like our central, our the way gait is a pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's predictive movement, right? And it's kind of it's a neurological phenomena where when we walk, one arm goes one way, one arm goes the other way, one leg goes one way, that's a pattern. Within that pattern, there's a ton of variability,
Yeah.
right, from the nervous system. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too like technical, but I think there's the difference between pattern and variability is pattern is what we're observing externally, and variability is what's happening on the inside of the system.
Wow, that's
Does that
the
make sense?
best. That's the best answer I've ever heard when it comes to distinguishing what each one.
Nailed
Yeah,
it.
and I got it on video. And I'm gonna
Yeah, it's just,
blast it out there.
I
It's gonna
feel
be
like,
awesome.
I know, I feel like a lot of us talking about this stuff, we are just getting confused as to what each other means,
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
right?
that's true.
Like,
Yes.
there's no real like we don't need to be as like we're not physical therapists, we're not licensed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all kind of use these terms and no one really knows. I could be using a term completely different than somebody else. So I think sometimes that's why it's hard to talk to each other in the fitness world or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, because we're saying things like neurological and stuff like that, and it's like, isn't everything neurological, or like neuromuscular training? I'm like, isn't everything neuromuscular?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
they may mean something else, and I don't know, right? Like but we're so quick to kind of jump on each other and be like, it's a pattern. And it's like, okay, relax, everyone. Let's take a cleansing breath in and a cleansing breath out. And step one is let's just talk about the terms and see if we're all on the same page about the terms, right?
Yeah. No,
So
you're right. It's true. It's a buzzword for sure. Um, and that's why I had to ask, because I want to make sure it's not a buzzword to you, which it isn't clearly at all. And like I
yeah,
said, that the way you describe how a pattern is what we see externally versus
yeah,
variabilities internally, what's going on. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I love that. I don't care what,
I just
anybody
came up with
else.
that, Mike. I
I know
just
you
came up
did.
with it.
Hey, it
It
works.
was
And
on the fly.
I'm gonna, well, so you're gonna get what does Tom Purvis say? Intellectual property, for that.
Oh
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
well, whatever.
Yeah.
But
And someone may disagree with me, and that's total. I would love that, like, yeah, let's talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Right.
Let's talk
Like,
why is that a disagreement, and be
yeah,
open to it. So it's,
yeah.
if
Like,
that's okay, because like you said, I get people all the time that just want to assume where, oh, you're a trainer. Hey man, can you help me with like I don't do weight loss stuff.
yeah,
Like, nah, sorry, here, go see my buddy here. Well, what about
yeah,
you? No, that's not what I do. Go over there.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
you explain what they do, and they're like, well, I need that too. I'm like, okay, well, that's two different things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
which one do you want? You want to,
yeah.
you know,
We all have a lot of needs.
yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too, man.
Right, right.
But
Yeah,
or you know what I mean. But yeah, it's very important to understand the context of what someone is talking about, because we walk into
100%.
we walk into a conversation all the time, and I get I get bashed a lot for asking questions like, geez, Mike, what are you, like an investigator or something? It's like,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah,
just I just want to know where you're coming from. That's all. It's not that I know more. Listen, I'm the dumbest person when it comes to this stuff, intentionally, because I want to know where you're coming from. Boom. Now I get it. Now it's
yeah.
easy. It's so hard to try to bring, it's easy for us. Like if we didn't know each other and you came to me and I just bragged about blah, 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 I do this. right?
Yeah.
I'm not really entering your world at all. I'm just being a bragger. But
Yeah.
if you ask me questions and then you, okay, now I know where you come from or why you have these issues, it makes more
Hmm.
sense. And now we can
Yeah.
have a connection and share what this small little world that we just, just
Yeah.
came into to solve a problem, to fix a problem, make things better, and
Hmm.
whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm totally okay being wrong. Like the older I get, the more I'm like, I'm super wrong. Not only do I want to be a little bit wrong, I want to be totally wrong. Like, yes, great. I'll change how I, view things. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be so rigid. I don't want to act like I have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm really fascinated. I think most people who are in this field in some way are fascinated by the human body and want to help people. And, you know, um, I think that it's important that we all just like relax a little bit and it's just my perspective, right? Like I just on social media, everyone's just always kind of fighting each other
Yeah.
on the fitness stuff. And it's like, and I guess in science, like researchers do that too,
Oh
everyone,
gosh,
yeah, right? So it's just kind of human nature, right? Like
it
I'm
is.
right and you're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but I think, as I try to evolve, I'm like, I think I'm right all the
Mm-hmm.
time and I'm often wrong. That's my new mantra.
And that's great. And you know what's funny, as muscle system specialist,
Yeah.
you have to prove yourself wrong when you have when you have someone in front of you, and
Yeah.
doing these tests, or excuse me, doing these specific exercises for them, and then to test to see it's
Yeah.
working. um
Yeah.
that's one thing that I like is I always tell my clients, I'm trying to prove myself wrong. Here we
Yeah.
go. And then there it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
they see the results. So there's no, like you said, no protocol, no assumptions of
Right.
being, those words, what is it? You had par- patellofemoral syndrome
Mm-hmm.
and some
Mm-hmm.
other stuff that they told you had,
Yep.
based on, what this normative structural data
Right.
that they like to throw in there. And
Yeah.
it's tough because I should start. You know what? I think I'm gonna start doing that. What do you do, Mike? I prove myself wrong on knowing uh, what's wrong with you on your muscle system that no one else has been able to do. I'll
I
try.
like that. I'd
I'm,
be like, where do I sign?
yeah, I'm gonna try that. See what people say,
Yeah.
and let's
And
get.
it's such a good point because it's not like I'm perfect at doing it. Like we're humans, we have biases.
Mhm.
If I start to see certain things, I totally catch myself being like, oh, your hip elevated on one side, the other side, there must be something wrong with the other side, and you've got to
Mhm.
reverse engineer it. And
Yes.
it's like, I'm like, hope, stop it, like, and sometimes I have to like leave the room, take a breath, and be like, okay, I need to come in with fresh eyes because I'm starting to predict things based
Yeah.
on my past experience.
Mhm.
And I have to let that go because I need to be, like we're talking about, right? We need to be really good decision makers. And one part of that is letting go of bias, and it's really hard, and it's a constant journey, or it's a constant process
Mhm.
to have someone show up and pay you really good money to make really good decisions. Like
Yeah.
I take that very seriously, right? Like
We
i'm
should.
valuable I'm valuable because I do not compromise my value system, right?
Mm.
Like I don't get lazy. I show up present, I show up without any of my crap in the room with me. No matter what stresses are happening in my life, I try to show up like, okay, not about me at all. It's
Mhm.
not about me being right. It's not about me being wrong. It's about me trying to figure out how to optimize this body in front of me. And
Yeah.
so much crap can get in the way.
Mm.
So, and protocol is one of those things that it's a time saver, but protocol is tough. It's like with my hip, right? I went to some people and they're like, okay, these are the 8 exercises you do for hip pain. And it's like, that's a protocol, and it can be effective. It saves time, but I didn't fit into the protocol, right? And I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, letting go of bias is a big, is a, is a big mountain to climb daily.
Yeah, and you know, I never realized how important knowing all that is until going through the course. Like
Me
Greg,
neither.
Greg categorizes each bias on like, you know, what you just said about the person's right hip moving versus the left. And
Yeah.
we automatically associate, oh, I've seen this before. I know
Right.
the last time I saw this, I did this one exercise and it was gone.
Yeah.
So, but then
Yeah.
go ahead, go try it. Give it a try. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mike. Prove yourself wrong. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden
Yeah.
they do it and they're like, oh no, that really hurt. And I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah. And like my little mini disappointment.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh man.
Totally.
And then you're looking to get like that ego stroke of, yeah, how'd you feel? No, that was terrible.
Oh,
What?
I know.
I'm the best
I
there
know.
is, you know? And
I
yeah,
know.
it's very humbling to go through
Yeah, it
those.
is.
And yeah, wow.
It
It's
totally is.
I like that. So you're on the east, you're on the west. Sorry, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
you're on the west
West
coast
Coast. Mhm.
and
In
I'm
San
totally
Diego.
on the east coast. And I like
Yep.
that the mindset of we're it's there. It's so cool. Like everything that
Yeah.
you said and shared, it's like, oh my gosh, I go through the same things, like
Yeah.
the same struggles, you know. And it's wild that like it's that's where it is. And I wish there was more of that, you know.
I know, right? Because we're all trying to figure out this relationship of how do I apply, practical applications of science, and how do I meld it with just like these intangibles of human interaction, right? Like it's a lot, and
Mhm.
it would be challenging, I think, as a person in pain. I've been through it, so I know it's really, chronic pain is really tough. It's really emotionally draining. And then trying to figure out what the heck is going on and trying to find the right people to help you. It's a really frustrating process from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I see it, and I see, because people who come to me are really frustrated.
Oh yeah.
It's just like they're almost a lot of times in despair, because it's like I guess I'm just someone who's going to be in pain for the rest of their lives,
Mm.
And it's tough. You have to make a lot of, we have to make decisions as practitioners, and as a client looking for someone and you're in pain, you have to make a lot of good decisions too.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
good decisions on both sides. And how do we empower people to make decisions that are the best for them? Because I may not be the perfect person for everybody, and I definitely haven't been. So, right, like how upfront, how do we make sure that we're a really good match?
Mhm.
And that's just a really fascinating process to me, that part.
Yeah, no, likewise.
Right.
It's interesting to know, like you want to, you know, the first struggle I always have is when I get somebody new. I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to be okay with this? Are they going to be okay taking their time? Then you got to ask that
Right.
question, and they're like, yeah, okay, or there's, well, no, what, we're gonna do some work, right? No, I mean, we're not
Yeah.
doing active work. We got to talk,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if you don't want to do that, then there's nothing to do,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, we'll do well if these few things, if you're okay with these few things, right? Like one of the things I talked about, like if you're okay with not feeling amazing right away, right? You are patient. Do you like learning? Like, but all of my clients are people who are really, they want to know, like,
Mm-hmm.
why? Like when I do this happens, like, why is that? And I try to explain, and they're all of my clients are fascinated just as much as me, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow, like look at that, look what happened when we did that. Both of
Mm-hmm.
our eyes are like, whoa, that's cool. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked at what the body can do and how it can overcome and strategize. And it's daily, I'm just like, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know it was gonna
And
be. I mean,
my
I
clients
wanted a
are like that.
result, but not that big of a result.
Yeah.
Like,
Or like, oh crap, that didn't work.
mm-hmm. Yeah, or like, oh,
But
maybe.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let's find let's regroup.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's I just try to be fascinated by it all and not attach anything to anything really, which is a challenge. but yeah, like, my clients are interested
Mhm.
in learning, because I think you kind of have to be to keep showing up.
You do. Absolutely. And it's willingness on both sides. And like you said, if oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. And then you look at the notes. A lot of times I write on the board and I'll ask
Yeah.
them, they'll even tell me, what about that right shoulder? I was just looking at that. Let's go take, let's
Yeah.
take a
Right.
look.
How
Right.
fun is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're buying, as a client, you're buying the relationship.
Mhm.
You're buying the professional relationship. And it is, and I tell people, this is the relationship, like, um, I'm not asking for a full-blown commitment, but it's a relationship, right?
Mhm.
Like, we work together, we talk together, and it's really the people who want to be educated about their bodies. And I think everyone should, right? Like, they should have a class in high school or something, like, hey, this is your body, this is how it works. But yeah, I think it's, my clients like the educational component, like, oh, and we go to the skeleton, and this is here, and this is here, and this is maybe why this goes this way, and this, your nervous system, works this way, and there, it's fascinating. It's fun for me, and yeah, it's an education process for
Mhm.
sure.
No, it's great. I have one
Yeah.
more question for you.
Yes,
Is
because
that a
then we're
surfboard?
done, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes.
I realized halfway through, like, is that a surfboard? It's like you going
Yes,
surfing after this?
that is, maybe.
Mhm.
It's too cold. It's even too cold in San Diego. Yes, these are some surfboards. I'm a longboarder. That's my boyfriend's shortboard. But
Okay.
yes, these are surfboards we
That's
surf
funny.
here in San Diego.
That's
It's cold.
awesome.
I surf usually from like April to December.
Mhm.
The water's a little too cold, and then we watch like Shark Week, and then I don't want to go, but I get over it.
That's funny.